Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar today that we have being presented by Karina Gallagher. It's going to be on the next generation of parks. And yeah, Karina is based in the UAE, so hopefully we can learn some really new, interesting features that are implemented there that maybe we can take to the UK or wherever you're based. We have quite a few people who have joined. I think if we wait one more minute, that would be great. The webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded to the Academy website afterwards in the coming days. So if you feel like you need to rewatch it or you feel like you think someone else should watch it, please have a look in a couple of days. It will also be featured on the newsletter next month. And yeah, Karina has been very kind and she can actually stay until 11:30 in case we have more questions that need to be answered. But yeah, obviously we have only scheduled for an hour, so understandable if people need to drop out. If all the questions don't get answered, we can get back to you basically afterwards. But yeah, so if you have any questions during the webinar, if you want to put them in the chat box function, and then we'll kind of go back to them at the end of the session. But yeah, I think those are all the housekeeping. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and I will let Karina begin talking. So yeah, thank you.
So thank you, Olivia, and to the Green Flag Award Academy for inviting me to speak today. And good day, everyone from Abu Dhabi. It's sort of 1 o'clock here, so I'll get started. I think after Abigail Gaines' most interesting webinar on gender equalities in parks at the last session, I've got a lot to live up to, but I'm starting with a bold title, and really that's representative of a bold Middle Eastern region that's actively building some of the world's most innovative and memorable smart and sustainable parks. Before we do a deeper dive into what these look like, perhaps I should just give some context, who I am and how I ended up in the Middle East. So this is me, and I began my career in the UK, and like many of you, learned from generations of professionals who understood that parks are essential civic infrastructure. 12 years ago, both my husband and I accepted opportunities, and we moved what was then our young family to Abu Dhabi. And I suppose I was believing that I was bringing that experience with me and I could make a difference here. After 20 years in government and 12 years in the private sector and judging parks internationally through the Green Flag Award programme, amongst a few other roles and opportunities along the way, I've had the privilege of seeing parks from different angles: policy, operations, design, and global benchmarking. So I wear different hats for different organisations, but essentially my core role is designing and building parks and open spaces for a company called Jabal. It's a private company, but soon to be government owned. So on a day-to-day basis, I shape projects in the region from early visioning through to delivery. I cover a wide scope beyond that shown here. I work with main clients, landscape architects and design consultants, specialist fabricators and contractors. Our projects are generally solution focused and grounded in local codes and compliance and safety requirements. So projects are delivered as intended within the region. So let me just give you a flavour of some of the installed projects. So this being an iconic sculptural play park, which has since become known as Gorilla Park. Next, we have a playful destination in Al Falah. Next, a very typical but very popular outdoor fitness area. Standard ball courts that you'll all be familiar with. This is a non-standard track and pitch at Repton School in Dubai, And I'll return to this example later in the presentation. This is a newly created pump track in Saudi, and I think once the vegetation has established, I think it's going to be quite a strong destination. This is an operator-run high ropes course, climbing wall, free fall and zip line at Hudria Island. Incidentally, there's a suspension bridge which was coined by the locals as a bridge to nowhere. It was built in 2012 for about 185 million, but it's no longer the bridge to nowhere. So this project was completed in 2022, and the island has since become earmarked for development to become the capital's premier lifestyle and adventure destination. Its residential plots sold off plan overnight, and their future parks, including a park called Zeugen Park, is going to be transformative for the region, and it's really one to keep an eye out for. This next slide is showing specialist architectural shade with integrated smart LED lighting. Some bespoke park furniture with integrated shade. A unique cool pathway, and again, I'll return to this concept later. And leisure domes, where we take the outdoors indoors. And last but not least, over 120 skate parks now have been designed and built in the region, from pocket parks to competition-worthy destinations, all by Jebel. And if you're interested, Jebel means mountain in Arabic. So when I moved to Abu Dhabi, I arrived, like many expats do, to the region, ready to share knowledge with the GCC, to pass on fundamentals of managing parks and public space, to share policy and practice. And if I'm honest, I thought I would be sharing my experience with a region that was still developing its public realm. But what I found was a country, it was different. They were eager to learn, but not asking whether change was possible. It was asking how quickly that could happen. And they were really willing to experiment and prepared to innovate at a scale I had never seen before. So instead of asking, how have we always done this? Instead, they were asking, what if? What if we designed larger parks for 45-degree summers? What if we integrated futuristic technology from the beginning? What if parks became destinations that could support public health and biodiversity and economic growth all at the same time? I think during the last 12 years, I've not met anyone not willing to absorb ideas from around the world and test them and challenge them and improve them. And something remarkable, I think, has happened somewhere in between. The flow of knowledge has become two-way. Today, professionals from Europe, North America, Asia are increasingly visiting the Middle East, not because it has all the answers, but because it's become one of the world's most ambitious living laboratories for public realm innovation. And as the Green Flag Award Academy recognises, the future of parks, they won't be created by one country teaching another. It will be created by all of us being willing to learn from each other, hence today. So I think we're all familiar with global examples leading the way. Singapore's Supertree Grove for its vertical gardens and venting air and harvesting solar energy. Perhaps you're familiar with New York's Little Islands that withstand rising sea levels and storm surges. And you may or may not be familiar with some of the giga projects here in the GCC, often dominantly funded by royal decree. So this is phase one of the Line Park system in Neom in Saudi Arabia. This is where they're building a multi-level green corridor completely free of cars. This project, it will be, in 2030, the largest single site solar park in the world, Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park is scheduled to reach a massive size by 2030, and that will then generate enough to power 4 million homes. By 2050, Al Maktoum International Airport will be the world's largest, serving over 260 million passengers each year, with parks and green public spaces embedded throughout the development, really demonstrating that even major infrastructure now recognises the value of nature and well-being. Dubai Transportation Strategy. This is shooting for 25% of Dubai's total transportation to be autonomous and electrical by 2030. And the UAE has targeted the year 2051 for it to achieve the title of the world's best country in the Global Food Security Index, which means expanding self-sustaining technological farmed areas and firming international trade partnerships, and enhancing national intake and reducing food loss and food waste. So this slide focuses on resilience and sustainability, which is really now shaping projects on an extraordinary scale, with parks becoming the heart of major developments. Across Saudi Arabia, developers such as Roshan and the National Housing Company are delivering communities that support their Vision 2030. And this is just phase 4 of Sedra by Roshan, and it will include 6 destination parks, 23 neighbourhood parks, 48 community parks, 56 pocket parks, 256 play areas, and 158 fitness areas. And this is just one phase. I've worked on phases 1 to 4, and currently phases 5 and 6 are already in design. And like many developers across the region, multiple large-scale projects are being delivered simultaneously. So my work spans residential communities, mixed-use developments, schools, hospitals, hotels, sports destinations, and public parks across Saudi Arabia and the wider Middle East, MENA region. So it keeps me busy. But in Abu Dhabi alone, we have projects which are running at scale. So there's an 11 billion dirham project that's been allocated to 5 massive green infrastructure projects for rollout in 26-27. And that's part of a multi-billion urban development framework led by the Department for Municipalities and Transport to establish Abu Dhabi as one of the world's most livable cities. And it focuses heavily on building people-centric, walkable neighbourhoods that balance rapid population growth with high community well-being. So shown here in yellow on the left are the areas currently under development in Abu Dhabi, and highlighted in Dubai on the right, highlighted with these white lines, you can see the development there. So Dubai has a mandate under the 2040 Urban Master Plan to double its total volume of green and recreational spaces. And whilst expansion is vast and budgets seem unlimited, each and every facility is intensely designed and value engineered with quite an over reliance on economies of scale, if I'm honest, to fund items even such as park furniture. So a lack of budget and budget cuts are not synonymous to the UK. It's part of every conversation that we have here in the Middle East. As I move from this smart park in Dubai with its shade-mounted solar lighting, interactive off-grid powered play equipment, fitness equipment that harvests electricity for LED ground floor lighting, and smart bins that alert staff when full, this is my first project in the region. It was installed over 12 years ago. But now I'm working on the first fully AI designed park approved under the Dubai 2040 Urban Master Plan. And it aims to analyse real-time citizen movements to exact local community needs. It allows residents to contribute to structural ideas which would be optimised by generative AI design. We accept our government, our developers demand speed, scale, and next level outcomes. Our response here isn't incremental. We're building data-led tools and systems. We use AI across all levels of business, which projects us forward rapidly to be able to respond. And we've effectively become conditioned by this market to think very differently. So for those of us working in the region, our perspective comes from quite a deep experience in this market and understanding what works, but more importantly, what doesn't work. So we accept our environmental demands more, and that pressure drives us better, and it ultimately produces more resilient outcomes. So I think when people ask me what has driven innovation in the Middle East, many expect my answer to be investment, but my answer is climate. You know, when we're designing parks in the Gulf, climate is not simply another design consideration. It defines almost every decision and refuses to compromise, and definitely exposes weaknesses, and it forces every discipline to think very differently. When temperatures regularly exceed 45 degrees, traditional park design simply isn't enough. You know, shade is no longer an amenity, it becomes essential infrastructure. Water is no longer decorative, it becomes precious resource that needs to be managed intelligently. And materials are no longer selected purely for aesthetics. You know, they're chosen for thermal performance, durability, and life cycle value. For us, thermal comfort outdoors isn't just air temperature, it's a combination of radiant heat bouncing off surfaces, humidity, wind speed, and how all of that interacts with the human body that's standing in it. So unshaded outdoor spaces in the UAE can tip into what's classified as extreme heat stress territory in summer, meaning they're not uncomfortable, they're functionally unusable. As an example, it's actually illegal for labourers to work on site between the hours of 12:30 and 3 p.m. So we have these constraints that we have to work around. Surface selection, orientation, and shade have to be decided before anyone starts picking playground equipment or benches. It's not an afterthought. And climate just doesn't allow average solutions, it demands better ones. That pressure has driven innovation, as I've said, across design, engineering, maintenance, and operations in ways that have relevance far beyond the Gulf. And that's where we can learn from each other. So the most important question has become, how do we make people comfortable outdoors? How to build something that makes the most of 6 to 7 genuinely comfortable months while still protecting people during the other 5. So shade shouldn't be planned, it should be planned like MEP. It's foundational. And as temperatures rise elsewhere, it will also become essential elsewhere. So heights, wind loads, post positioning, structural calculations, integrated lighting. It's my daily love language, to be honest. We understand that tensile shade structures, cells. They can block 90 to 97% of UV radiation and reduce surface temperatures beneath by approximately 8 to 12 degrees when properly angled. Bioclimatic pergolas with adjustable louvres. They let winter sun in, and they can also block summer heat without choking off airflow. And neem trees, native trees, can drastically cut solar radiation, whilst GAF trees offer the native drought-resistant alternative. The buildings themselves can create shade through smart proportions, narrow pathways with the right height to width ratio, because they cast shadow across the pedestrian routes. And you can see this exact principle in Masdar's cities, a street layout, which I'll discuss shortly. We also integrate smart technology into canopies and walkways. And this example here is driven by the client's need to make tourists comfortable walking between the museums within the cultural district on Saadiyat Island. Locals comfortable in commuter spaces and communities active in cultural parks. And we introduced these sensor-driven air conditioning pathways to really reduce the ambient temperature below the shade itself. I guess you can call us crazy, but it works. So cooling systems are another way to reduce ambient temperatures by 2 to 4 degrees. And we've established that through experience that high pressure misting works well inland in drier air. The water evaporates and pulls heat with it. Near the coast, where humidity is already high, that same system evaporates more slowly, and it does far less work. Water features for us follow the same logic. Splash pads and misting arches make sense inland, whilst coastal spaces do better with visual water features, fountains, canals, paired with actual ventilation corridors, rather than more misting piled onto already humidified air. So another point that I want to mention is that the UAE water has enough mineral content to clog misting nozzles within 6 to 8 weeks without proper filtration. So for us, a brilliant cooling system with no maintenance plan is really a 6-week solution to a 12-month problem for us. So we have to pay attention to what we're doing and where. And we mustn't forget, it's not just a cooling feature. Water in parks also shapes comfort, identity, and emotion. Like the UK likes the sun, but not too much, as there's no air conditioning over there. But by comparison, the UAE likes water, but not too much. So here's an example of what we experience here. And Dubai faced significant flooding in recent years. The UAE's infrastructure is really designed for arid conditions, meaning its drainage systems are insufficient during sudden heavy downpours. Climate change and unusual weather patterns have contributed to the increasing frequency and intensity of such events. In April 24, the UAE recorded its heaviest rainfall in 75 years and caused road closures, resulted in 5 fatalities, unfortunately, and insurance losses were estimated at $3.4 billion US dollars. In December 2025, just a year later, Dubai experienced even heavier rains, turning streets into rivers. And at this point, authorities advised residents to stay indoors and encouraged remote work for the private sector. In March of this year, we had 4 inches of rainfall over 4 days, and it really led to mass urban flooding. Consequently, climate resilient smart drainage systems are being used to mitigate future flood risk. And Intelligent bioswales are now a core feature of new developments and increasingly retrofitted into established communities. Rainwater harvesting, as you know, is not a recent phenomena. It's here in the UAE, it's an ancient necessity. So Al Ain Oasis is a perfect example. This UNESCO World Heritage Site is really a masterclass in blending time-tested climate adaptation methods with modern digital management layers, and it serves as a living blueprint for the future of desert parks. The ancient Falaj underground irrigation network is integrated with modern fluid sensors that check water levels and soil saturation across 147,000 date palms in this park. The dense and multi-tiered canopy system where the tall date palms are located block the intense sun. The smaller fruit trees, they provide the secondary shade, and the ground crops cooling the soil naturally lowers the park temperature by several degrees without using artificial power. And the park now has a digital eco-centre, which features an interactive low-emission educational centre, and visitors are able to interact with generative mapping games to model future desert oasis systems and understand resource balance to demonstrate how these extraordinary landscapes have continued to thrive for future generations. And whilst Al Ain Oasis is an ancient park setting with modern tech, Masdar City parks are the modern equivalent. This was designed by Foster and Partners, UK architects, and they combine modern and ancient sustainable living practices. The pavements here, they convert footsteps into electricity to power park lighting. And there's drone delivery hubs with designated landing zones to safely receive automated medical and food payloads. There's driverless cars and electric monorails within the space. And that's all alongside these timeless passive cooling methods that you see here. So where the hosh or the courtyard creates natural cooling, the Barjeel or wind tower on the right captures breeze and directs down through buildings, and the narrow seeker streets provide shade and encourage airflow. So proving that innovation doesn't replace heritage. It builds upon, it creates places that are smarter and more resilient and more connected to their environment. So I think for me, the future of parks isn't about choosing between technology and tradition. So the smartest parks, I think this is known, that they're the ones that you barely notice the technology at all. Abu Dhabi has retrofitted prominent municipal spaces, including Family Park, Corniche Park and Dalma Park, into a connected IoT network. This network directly contributed to the capital's ranking within the top 5 on the global IMD Smart City Index. And the parks now feature park-wide sensors checking real-time micro air quality, human density metrics, and leverage predictive maintenance, which is critical to managing these green spaces automatically. These parks achieved, I think it was 84% citizen satisfaction rating for their public park upkeep. And Abu Dhabi is making parks perform better overall, improving safety, efficiency, comfort and sustainability, whilst also reducing operational costs, because as we know, every litre of water matters, every degree of cooling matters, and every maintenance visit has a cost. For operators, it means lower costs, greater resilience and better performing parks, and for visitors, a park that feels clean, safe and well cared for. one that's comfortable and encourages repeat visitation. So materials play an incredibly important part in the UAE. Heat isn't, as I've said earlier, isn't the only thing that materials are up against. Heat plus UV, plus humidity, plus coastal salt corrosion, plus the daily swing between scorching days and cool nights. So a bit of a quick materials check for you here. UV stabilized EPDM rubber with aliphatic binder applied correctly holds up well for playground surfacing. HDPE plastic needs proper UV stabilizers or it'll fade and crack and fracture at joints. Powder coated steel needs marine grade finish near the coast, all the corrosion winds. 316 stainless steel resists corrosion beautifully, but gets hot, so we have to shade it or coat it anywhere where people touch it. Anodized aluminium is a strong low heat mass choice for shade structured frames. Untreated timber is basically a non-starter outdoors. It cracks and splinters fast. Asphalt can exceed 60 degrees in direct sun and radiates heat, so reflective paving reduces heat gain by 30 to 40%. So that's our preference. And solar panels are often coated in a fine dust and sand. Hence, you don't really see as many of them as one would think. So looking at the technology such as windscreen wipers that clean those solar panels are currently being explored. Increasingly, we use materials that combine thermal reduction with performance enhancing specifications so that we can create high performing spaces to support healthier lifestyles and with that all important shade structure, keep people coming back and using the space. So let me explain. I mentioned Repton School in an earlier slide. Repton School is designed to transform the way students experience sport. Their sports village offers state-of-the-art facilities, including 2 full-sized certified 3G rugby and football pitches, as well as a junior field, a 200-metre running track, 100-metre sprint track, a multi-sport AstroTurf with cricket square, shaded multi-use courts for netball and tennis, paddle and pickle courts, and that's just outside. So the indoor facilities are equally impressive. I think the kids are rather lucky, and their opening was celebrated with visits from these football legends and UFC champions. And I think the main takeaway, what's important to know is the use of a cork granular infill that lowers the ambient temperature of the artificial grass system. It lowers the temperature between 5 to 12 degrees at midday. So through innovation and new materials, we've enhanced the thermal comfort, which encourages increased usage of these sports spaces and directly enhances athletic performance. The same system is now being used in public parks, improving their comfort rating, dwell time and value as sports spaces, ultimately improving the user experience and their value. Here at West Yas Skate Park, it's been the materials, the shade materials have been carefully selected, and they're really designed to increase the airflow. Equally, the park is positioned at the intersection of 3 residential developments, and that's not only to maximise usage, but to also benefit from the wind tunnel effect that drastically reduces the temperature of the space below the shade by 20 to 30%. Providing that crucial airflow when temperatures reach the level they do, this matters. And local skaters who obviously work up a sweat are definitely more comfortable riding West Yas than other inner city skate parks. Which proves visitors shift their behaviour because they will move to different locations depending on where they're more comfortable. Essentially, in the UAE, comfort dictates seasonality. So parks are used when conditions are safe and enjoyable. And this teaches us that climate resilience isn't optional, it's foundational. And none of this is about fighting the climate, but intelligently designing with the information that climate gives us. These heat sinks, prevailing winds, stormwater, and that's before any material gets ordered or a single tree gets planted. And I know that I've talked a lot about heat, but the UAE has some genuinely excellent outdoor weather for more than half the year. Please do come and experience the region. When heat becomes manageable, parks and public realm become places people want to be in, even in challenging climates. As cities expand and waterfronts are developed, natural spaces are often lost and people are displaced. And I spoke earlier about how do we make people comfortable outdoors. Something as simple as well-designed, well-placed, shaded seating increases dwell time by 50 to 70% and transforms the space from somewhere people pass through into somewhere they choose to stay. It provides a place, in this case, for fishermen to rest their rods, or a commuter to take a break, or a family to pause and enjoy the waterfront. So small interventions create moments, strengthen connections, and encourage people to stay longer and return more often. People rarely remember the space, they remember how it made them feel. So for decades, the park sector has focused on maintenance, standards, biodiversity, accessibility, and facilities, and these remain fundamental. But today, public spaces are increasingly expected to offer something more: greater engagement, stronger place identity, and lasting value. On Al Maraya Island, the focus is on experience. Designed primarily for evening use when temperatures are cooler, these musical swings, illuminated seesaws, and destination hammocks and tech ball make these areas come alive. And these simple interventions encourage people to stop, interact, and spend much more time in these spaces. Whilst high quality design matters, it's the memorable experiences that protect the long-term value of these spaces. So I think the slide will show some bespoke play areas, I'm hoping. Here we go. Yeah. So bespoke play areas do far more than provide somewhere for children to play in this region. These spaces have become destinations. They encourage healthy risk-taking, as we all know. They challenge and provide cooperative play opportunities. But in a region where busy lifestyles often mean children spend much more time with maids than what they should, these types of spaces create valuable opportunities for meaningful family time. At the same time, they create memorable experiences that strengthen destination, build emotional connections, and give families a reason to return. So one of the most powerful yet overlooked aspects of park design is not what people experience, but what they remember. And behavioral psychologist Daniel Kahneman suggests people don't remember every moment, but they do remember those highs and how the experience ends. So for designers, that means creating moments of surprise, discovery, challenge, and wonder. While each of these parks here are unique, they all share that same principle. There's storytelling, there's immersion, social connection, and cultural identity. They show how thoughtful design transfers and transforms climate challenges into memorable experiences. So where shade becomes beauty, really, where water becomes theatre and culture becomes something people experience rather than simply seeing. This This is memory making design, and it creates places people remember, recommend, and return to. And I think most of us here will know that the Green Flag Award recognises that excellence isn't measured solely by the quality of a landscape, but by how well it's used. And the most successful parks attract diverse communities, encourage repeat visits, and remain active across the seasons and year after year. And in the UAE, parks transform after sunset, essentially. As temperatures fall, evening programming creates those new opportunities for recreation, culture, and social connection, particularly during those hotter summer months. But memorable experiences don't just create stronger destinations, they create healthier communities. And we've long understood the physical benefits of parks, but their impact goes far beyond exercise. In a region facing rising rates of stress, obesity, and diabetes, well-designed parks provide places to reconnect, recover, and recharge. Research in neuroscience and environmental psychology now shows that the way we design landscapes directly influences how people feel. Elements such as natural sound, fractal light, texture, and organic forms can reduce stress, improve focus, and support emotional well-being. They're not simply aesthetic choices, they're design decisions that shape human experience. And the parks of the future won't just be judged on how they look or function, but how they make people feel, what they help people remember, and the well-being they deliver. So if we look at the interconnectedness of this model, every successful park needs all three working pillars. The next three award-winning case studies all demonstrate these principles. Yep, each one has become recognised for pushing one pillar perhaps a little further than the others. So I'd like to look at climate resilience in a park that's our first example, Al Fay Park, and it has a huge commitment to climate resilience. The second case study that I'd like to look at is 104 Parks, and this demonstrates smart infrastructure that quietly transforms the visitor experience. And I'd like to share with you a final case study, Al Masar Park, which shows the power of memory making design. And that's a park, a very normal park that people don't just simply visit, but they really connect within that space. All three parks are resilient, intelligent, and deeply valued by their communities. So let's focus on Al Fay Park. This park in Abu Dhabi represents a fundamental shift in how urban parks are designed for challenging climates. It covers 27,500 square meters. It was the UAE's first urban park, specifically designed around biodiversity, social interaction, and microclimate optimization. Rather than simply creating a green space, the design team asked different questions. How can a park become noticeably cooler, more comfortable, more ecologically valuable, particularly within one of the world's hottest cities? Every element from the tree canopy and planting strategy to the landform, materials and shaded spaces were carefully considered to reduce the ambient temperatures and encourage people to spend more time outdoors. The result was a park that not only transformed the visitor experience, but also gained international recognition, receiving the World Architecture Festival Landscape of the Year, the Lanzine International Landscape Award, and the World Landscape Architecture Awards. Al Fay Park demonstrated that climate responsive design isn't just about surviving extreme heat. It creates destinations that are both environmentally resilient and genuinely enjoyable, and earned its reputation as the coolest place in town, both literally and metaphorically. What makes Al Fay Park remarkable? Through intelligent microclimate design and highly efficient irrigation, the park uses around 40% less water than a traditional park, creating noticeably more more of a comfortable environment. And there's 2,000 native trees and shrubs, including these native gaff trees, carefully selected to provide biodiversity, natural shade, and the cooling. Whilst I think what I think is, I suppose, the most important part of this design and build of this park is the process. So ecologists, planting specialists, landscape architects, recreation experts, we all work together from the very beginning, and the result is a park that's not just beautiful, it's an ecosystem, it's a social space, and a piece of climate infrastructure all in one. And the real takeaway is that when we design parks as integrated systems rather than collections of features, they perform so much better for nature and for the city. I do have a video, but I'm just wondering if there's time to share that, or whether I should share it after. Maybe I'll just start this, Olivia, and then maybe skip through it, and maybe we can either return at the end or share it with everyone after.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just begin. Can everyone hear? Is there sound?
I think the sound isn't working right now.
Okay.
We can share it after if that's easier. I can always put a link on the chat maybe.
So I won't take you on a short walk through this park. I'll share that with you, and hopefully you can take that walk later in your own time. So let's move on to the second case study. This is 104 neighbourhood parks. This was implemented by the Department for Municipalities and Transport, and they aim to transform underutilised land within accessible community areas across Khalifa City A, Shackwelt, and Mohammed bin Zayed City. These are older areas of Abu Dhabi. They delivered in just 6 to 8 weeks through a fast-track design and build programme. Each park was tailored to its local community, incorporating the native planting, shaded walkways, sports courts, playgrounds, social spaces, many of which are located alongside neighbourhood mosques. In total, the programme transformed 740,000 square of land. It introduced more than 22,500 trees. It increased biodiversity by 500%, and several parks have since achieved Green Flag Award status. So the project also went on to receive the international recognition for the 2023 Monocle Design Award for its outstanding contribution to neighbourhood public spaces. And what makes this programme particularly interesting is how smart technology was seamlessly integrated into everyday park management. IoT sensors collect the real-time data, monitor park usage, maintenance needs and safety. Adaptive LED lighting responds to movement, reducing energy consumption while creating the safer environments after dark. The Wi-Fi enabled smart benches and mobile connectivity enhance the visitor experience, and automated security alert systems allow faster response when incidents do occur. These parks really demonstrate how smart infrastructure transforms public spaces from places simply to visit into connected, efficient and sustainable community assets, helping create healthier, happier cities for the future. And at the heart of that programme is SLIM. It's a computational landscape information modelling tool that combines advanced 3D modelling with ecological and social data. And that was developed over a decade of experience in the Middle East. And the result is smarter data-driven design that balances environmental performance with community need. And its approach and the SLIM, from SLIM, the AEC Tech Award for Most Sustainable Technology. Our third and final case study is Al Massa Park. I think in 2025, it was awarded the Green Flag Award, and it's Abu Dhabi's first linear sports park. It stretches over 800 metres. It combines advanced microclimate design with nature and community to create a connected public space that promotes outdoor well-being, active lifestyles and social interaction. It's more than just a park. It links people, nature and neighbourhoods, creating places to exercise, meet, relax and enjoy the city throughout the year. Al Masar is shaped by Abu Dhabi's natural landscape, so its rolling landforms are inspired by the desert terrain and carefully positioned to capture the cooling northwest winds, creating a more comfortable microclimate throughout the park. I'm racing through because I'm conscious of time, but the park is really designed to support active social living, offer spaces for sport, fitness, relaxation, community events. It has a 2-kilometre running and cycling loop that connects the entire park. And what makes it truly special is the connection that people have with it. It really has become a much loved destination where families, friends, people from many different cultures come together to exercise, socialize and create lasting memories. And like any successful park, its popularity brings many challenges. Heavy use means that ongoing maintenance and investment are essential to preserve the high quality that the community values so highly. So, whilst much of the world paused during COVID, I think you can see that the UAE accelerated. Rather than waiting for normality to return, governments and developers here use the opportunity to rethink what parks could become. Driven by extreme heat, water scarcity, rapid urbanisation, and I suppose changing public expectations, the region has delivered some of the world's most innovative parks. I believe this marks the next or 5th generation of parks, if you will, built on the 3 interconnected pillars: climate resilience, smart infrastructure and memory making design. One that keeps people, climate resilience, keeps people safe. One keeps parks operational, smart infrastructure, and one creates the emotional connection that transforms a park from somewhere people visit into somewhere they never get. Memory making design. So if the 4th generation was defined by automation, sensors and data, the 5th generation shifts the focus back to people. But there's one force accelerating every one of those pillars: artificial intelligence. AI is no longer something on the horizon. It's already here. We're integrating at every single level. As I already mentioned, I'm working on the world's first AI designed and delivered park. The true measure of success, however, is not how smart a park becomes, but how much better it makes people's lives. Because the next generation of parks are not being remembered for their technology. They're being remembered for how they made people feel safe, how comfortable people feel. I know that Green Flag Award is exploring its assessment criteria at the moment, so perhaps now is a good time to ask the question: what would a Green Flag Award in 2035 look like if judged against future societal needs here in the UAE rather than today's standards? So if the next generation of parks will be defined by how people feel, connect, adapt and remember, should we continue to judge parks by visitor numbers or by the memories that they create? Thank you.
Well done, Karina. That was really, really interesting. It was very cool to see like all the different things you've implemented. I learned a lot. And yeah, so it's kind of futuristic, some of the stuff that you've been speaking about. It's really cool. I am gonna quickly, so we've got some questions. So one question is regarding water, where obviously the speed of development is really quick. Where are you sourcing your water from?
Okay, desalinization, essentially. So we have huge plants across the region, that huge buildings where they have invested in the technology, which they're increasingly trying to make smarter to reduce the load, the energy load, but it's done through desalination, and increasingly, as I showed earlier, through the biospheres, through natural rainwater harvesting in the region.
Nice. And then also, do you have many problems with vandalism? Obviously, it's very expensive and technological equipment. Do you have something that you use to implement that you can to protect the equipment from vandalism, or do you not really face that issue?
Is a really good question, because there's a bit of a dichotomy here on that topic. So overall, the region is incredibly safe. We can walk outdoors, we can leave our back doors open. We just do not experience any sort of we don't experience perhaps what I think some areas of the UK experience. However, in areas where there is a strong local community, and particularly where those areas are perhaps in areas not well overlooked, then we can experience some quite extreme vandalism. But what we've discovered really is because there's no ownership or care of those spaces, like the local people haven't bought into the value of those spaces, but through regeneration of local parks and incorporating local people into the consultation process, into that sort of development of and regeneration of the park, then they embrace it, and they very much sort of connect more with those spaces, and then we see that massive reduction in the vandalism in just those localized pockets of spaces and parks.
Yeah, that's something we've heard in quite a few webinars about getting local people involved in the consultation process, really improving like the park design and how it's received. Do you import your innovative materials, or are they manufactured within the UAE?
Yeah, again, a great question, because in the past they've been imported. It's still very much considered that European materials are of a higher grade and quality and very much valued in the region. But increasingly, the UAE is placing a strong emphasis on made in the UAE, made in the Emirates. And sorry, I've got somebody that's trying to call me on another Teams call. Let me just. So yeah, there's increasing emphasis on becoming more resilient as a country, and fabricating products here in the region. So there is definitely a shift across, but again, it's about knowledge sharing. And so what we do now is we work with perhaps European design houses, and then we fabricate locally. So we do this sort of partnership approach, but going further into the future, then certainly we as a country and across the whole of the Emirate will be able to produce the products that are needed within country.
Amazing. And then I know we've spoken about this, but do you see that some people have commented that obviously some of these features might be expensive, and do you think that like the UK, there's something we could implement any of these within the UK, or are we too hampered by monetary resources and a lack of?
Yeah, I ran a bit of an AI kind of search, because I was anticipating this very question. So the unit rate for the creation of a park here is exactly the same as the unit rate in the UK. So I know the scale of what I've demonstrated today kind of it looks beyond the limits really of what others can perhaps use, engage in, or apply to their own areas. But I think I mentioned earlier that the cost per unit, per park bench, per shade structure, per play area, it's really driven down very, very low here. I was very surprised when transitioning from the UK to here, how we were able to develop quite amazing playgrounds for less money. So I think it's an interesting comparison, and perhaps there's more sort of research that's required around that. But from my experience, the price point is much, much lower here than what it is in the UK, or was 12 years ago. Obviously, I've been in the region a long time now, slightly disconnected.
And then there's something we have, is there, so that someone is trying to talk about design in extreme climate. So is there any innovation and use of natural materials? When talking about sustainability, are there circular considerations being implemented? And then also, this is part of the same question, are embodied carbon involved in material production, operational energy, and end of life factors being integrated into the sustainability and resilience of these projects?
Definitely. On every project, there's what we call LEED certification. So every one of us that plays a part in the creation or management or maintenance of these spaces has to look at carbon footprint, where the materials are sourced, how we can reduce that sort of footprint, I suppose. Every part of the cycle is looked at in great detail. We just move at such speed, and there are so many people that are involved on these sort of spaces. It's intense. There are hundreds of entities that are involved, and because they're working at speed, they're able to do their reviews, they're able to source the right materials, they're able to look at every part of the supply chain process to ensure that we're giving back the information that's being requested at the top level, to ensure that when we're delivering it, they're delivering with a surety that it's meeting all the correct criteria.
And then I guess kind of following on for that is because the process is working so quickly, like do you ever struggle with finding workers, or and then also with that kind of, again, with AI being used, it's all very quick, I guess, but yeah.
Labour in the region is cheap. We have a workforce that predominantly comes from the rest of the world. So you'll find sort of Filipinos perhaps in that administration sector. We have an Indian sort of sector that are very technical minded, working on perhaps park design, and we have labourers on site that come from regions that are willing to work in the region in the heat, and many of which it's a need must scenario. They send their money back home. That's just the sort of labour structure of the environment in which we live and work. So resource has not been an issue at all. I think that sorry, your second part of the question was...
then it was kind of about AI, and there's quite a lot of questions regarding AI. So
yeah, okay.
What does the design and delivered aspect mean? And with AI being used for design, are you still able to consult with local people, as you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, okay. So first of all, in relation to labour, AI is not replacing labour currently at all. What it's doing is speeding up the systems so that every member of staff, well, certainly here at Jubal, every member of staff is then able to work across a greater number of projects, and they're able to produce them to a higher quality. So it's not replacing labour. That's the first point. Second point, around design. AI is used, we have developed our own AI toolkits. So we are generating spaces using AI that has been pre-created, and we've got our own toolkit, as I've said, but others do as well. And I think when I mentioned SLIM earlier, that's also a generated toolkit that's used for the purposes for which it was created. So in design in particular, like playground design, for example, we, at a touch of a button, with a few prompts, we are generating play spaces. At the moment, between, I would say, 4 to 7 minutes, and that's creating a 2D layout, a render, and a video. And in the past, I've gone to meetings with clients. I will visit them. Dubai for me is an hour away, so I'll go in the morning to visit a client. When I come back, because our sort of working environment is fast, I will have clients on the phone that are demanding their design returned by lunchtime, which in the past has been impossible, but now it's not. Quite simply, we can even take our devices with us. We can sit with the client, we can input the brief that they're giving us, and we can generate very, very quickly a design that in some cases they approve, or it's sort of passed through into multiple generations of designs to create an output that they are satisfied with.
Lovely. And then just with that also, so you're still able with, you're still, yeah, I think you mentioned, you did answer this, that you're still able to involve local people in the consultation, and like, I guess the AI is not replacing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
so, yeah, perhaps just with the consultation process, fundamentally, it's not been a core part of park creation here. And I think it's still in its infancy. Green Flag Award has worked wonders in the region for encouraging consultation. And I think developers are becoming much more considerate of their future populations by consulting the wider populace. So consultation is a growing sort of feature that we're seeing. And then how we apply that with AI, we are able to send out surveys quickly, for example, and we see that the government send out multiple surveys, which we're, completing, but the data and the analytics are produced incredibly fast, almost in real time. So I think that's the power of AI during any consultation process.
amazing. And then there are two more questions. I'll do the next AI one first. Have you experienced any issues or downsides in using AI?
Yeah, of course. It has its limitations, and there's been many frustrations. I think if you were to ask any of my designers in the early stages how when using CAD blocks, for example, it generates something completely different. We see slide outfalls that go off in strange positions, and we see shade posts that are modelled pre-BIM. I don't know if that's something used in the UK, but we tend to model in AI first so that we can kind of assess, and we use CAD and SketchUp, etc., etc. But we can model quickly to get an understanding of the 3D space. We can pick up on any sort of anomalies that show up. But of course, you know, we're having to differentiate between, is that an AI anomaly, or is that a true anomaly that would reflect on site? So sometimes, whilst it can speed up parts of the process, we might have to spend a bit more time digging deeper to ensure that what data we are returning back into any kind of output is as accurate as it can be. But yes, there's many limitations to AI, and you know, I suppose, as we all know, the more we use it, the more it will become more accurate.
Yeah, but anything new, it needs to be, you have to go through some hiccups first, I guess. And you learn how to use it better and better the more you use it, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the final question is about wildlife. Is wildlife already quite limited in the UAE? And if not, how are you kind of able to integrate it into the parks that you're designing? Because obviously, as you mentioned, they're quite human focused, which is great. But are you able to kind of think about that? You mentioned that because part of the question is again talking about how you integrate heritage and landscape, which you have kind of described how you were able to do that. But I guess there was the element of wildlife that's been able to be introduced.
Yeah. It's a shame I didn't play the video, because at the beginning of that, you hear the birds tweeting. And I think that showcases very, very well, because it's a park that has so much sort of softscape and trees within this space that where the birds came from, I don't know, but it's an absolute sort of location that is just teeming with birds and wildlife, and to the point where I think there are now the walks around the park where they have people that are giving interpretations and educational sort of walks on wildlife. Again, Green Flag has, I think we have over 100+ Green Flag awarded parks in the region now, and a lot of sort of education in the early days, back 10 years ago, was around encouraging park managers to bring to encourage the bird and animal life into their parks, and then to also educate the local populations on the species, so that they learn to first of all see them, but ultimately respect them. And a lot of work has been done in the region to diversify the species that we see here. And furthermore, and slightly disconnected, but what we're seeing is this massive trend in bespoke play design for large, or not even large, medium-sized bespoke play structures that are native species focused, and accompanied by that interpretation within that, whether that's digital or on signposts, to educate the population within parks around native species. So desert foxes, falcons, sand lizards, camels, of course. Yeah, all of these types of wildlife and animals are being called for in children's areas as much as within the parks themselves.
Amazing. Oh, well, you've had a lot of very positive feedback for, I don't know how eye-opening it was, the presentation, and yeah.
I can't see all the notes, but thank you everyone. I appreciate that.
There was one that I wanted to relay back to you because it was very positive, but I can't find it. But well done. Oh yeah, the innovation, design and environmental considerations are truly inspiring. The ideas are a leading example to the rest of the world. So yeah, well done. And thank you for everyone who attended. Everyone seems to be really interested in AI, so I will definitely try and find something related to park design and AI that we can maybe put on the resource hub so people can understand a
Yeah.
bit better how it can be used and implemented. But yes, thank you all for joining, and thank you so much, Karina, for doing such an amazing job. Thank you. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, everyone.